What's up, people? Let's get this show on the road, baby!
C-A-E is in the house. Cruising down the road, bumping bass, feel the thrill. Subwoofers banging hard, yeah, we're making a scene. Windows down, hair flying, got the vibe, what a chill. Lights flashing bright, we're in a bass machine. With pretty ladies hanging tight inside this rolling show. Every car statement, yeah, we own this night. Let it flow. Get loud, turn it up to shake the ground. Get loud, feel the music all around. Get loud, yeah. Get loud, drop the bass on the crowd. Get low, get down, let it hit the ground. Turn it up, smell the smoke in the air. Crank it up all the way, like you just don't care. Float that hair. Feel the beat, feel the drive, let that be talk, feel alive. Bass pounding down the line, move your body, breaks the time. Let it shake, let it roll, kick drums echo in your soul. Deep vibrations, take control, feel the music, make it whole. Get loud, turn it up to shake the ground. Get loud, feel the music all around. Get loud, yeah. Get loud, get loud, get loud, get loud,
What's up, people? What is up today? We have people in the house already talking about batteries, talking about all sorts of good things. And let me go see what we got going on today. How is everybody? How is everybody on this fine? What is it, Monday? No, it's Sunday. Oh, wow. I forgot. It's Sunday. Car audio talk. And I can't remember what day of the week it was. How about that? Let's see what we got going on here. Bobby said, let's do this. El Fuego's in the house, y'all. Hello from the Pacific Northwest, El Fuego. Hello to you too, my friend. Still Ramon. We'll get to you here in a second. I read your comment earlier. El Fuego's repping for Slapz. Slapz audio, baby. Hell yes. Let's see what else we got in here. Making the big 5 cables as we speak. Yeah, baby. Bobby's on top of his shot. Let's see here. He's been texting Fuego. Fuego's not responding. All right. So, still Ramon, if you are in the chat, we're going to get with that and explain what I have to say about your issue. Still Ramon says, I have 3 batteries that died sitting in my classics for a few months, likely from the car alarms draining them. I would rather get them refurbished for less than buying 3 new yellow tops. Anyone with any information, I'd greatly appreciate it. I'm in the Atlanta area, by the way. Okay, still Ramones. So, on the batteries. First off, if they're still under warranty, then you can take them to where you purchased them. You should be able to get them tested. If they test bad, then you can get them replaced under warranty. In the future, I recommend, and I listed it in the chat, this little guy, this little battery maintainer. You could use a lot of different ones, but I like going with something that's less expensive. So I did list this in the chat. Click on that link there, and you can pick up a couple of these guys real cheap. Put these on your batteries, and you can prevent that problem from occurring in the future. There's also solar powered maintainers that work pretty good if you don't have any power where you're setting your vehicle at. Sometimes you have it out in a building, like on a farm, up in a barn or something or whatever. Those types of deals work really good. You set them up outside, and then they run the cables inside, and it charges the battery. There's options. Another option, of course, is taking the battery out of the circuit completely and just leaving it car with no power whatsoever when it's setting up. But hopefully that answers your question. The second thing I would recommend is stay away from those batteries. I would look over at Interstate. Interstate makes some great batteries. If you go by the Interstate, local Interstate dealer in your area, you can often pick up reconditioned AGMs for next to nothing. So if you can't get anything done with those batteries that you have, the Optimas, and they won't honor their agreement, head over to a local Interstate and pick up some reconditioned Interstate AGMs, and then also put on battery maintainers to keep those batteries up. All right, so let's see what else is in the chat. You folks are talking. Bobby said, Efrain watching from West Texas. Efrain's watching from West Texas. What's up, man? Jay Sipes. Give me, I don't know what that, oh, it's a clap. Is it a clap? I don't know what it is, but he gave me one of them. Bobby is talking to Jay. We got hell. All right, let's see here on a second. Hell on a second. Bobby B. Optima, the 3-year warranty. Jay said Optima has a 3-year warranty. How long? A long time ago, right? Not sure how. Yeah, Optima used to be a really high-end, reliable piece of equipment. From what I gather, now they're not nearly as reliable as they used to be. They moved their production to areas that aren't near as good at quality control, so you may get hit and miss results with the Optima stuff. So like I said, I'm a big fan of Interstate. I've had really good luck with Interstate batteries. There are others out there also, but for your money, if you're going to run an AGM, especially in car audio, which I know you're not talking about car audio specifically with this situation, but if you're going to be running car audio, you're going to be running lots of batteries, so you want to try to get as good of a deal as possible. Go to your Interstate dealer and ask about reconditioned AGMs. They do a real good job of getting those guys back up and running and in good shape, and you can pick them up for like 40, 50, 60 bucks a piece, $100 sometimes, and you can pick up however many of them you need to be able to carry the current. Speaking of which, we're going to talk about the things on the board back here today. You guys see my little sign right there? That's a list of things I'm going to cover today in the show. And Alabama said excess AGM may be next. I don't have a problem with excess power batteries. I just know that they are pricey compared to for what they give you. I don't necessarily think that the price and the value that you're getting are competitive. I think you're paying more for the name, for that excess logo on the battery, and I don't really think it's necessarily the best deal. Okay, that's where I stand on that. Having said that, they make excellent equipment. I just think you're paying more for the name than you are for the battery. Okay, so starting out with our list today is Lithium versus AGM, and we're going to cover some of the details about that. So I had somebody in one of the comments on one of the recent videos ask me about the difference in storage capacity for lithium versus AGM. So basically, he was wanting me to compare 20 amp hours of lithium versus 20 amp hours on an AGM battery, or any other amp hour amount that you want to compare. And I had to think about this. I understand the difference, but I had to think about a way to put this into a context so that the average person or someone who doesn't know anything about batteries could understand the difference and why it's important. Okay, and I'm comparing this to a person with a shovel moving dirt. All right, so you got the person that's doing the work represents the alternator. Okay, the amount that alternator is moving represents the spade on there. Okay, the shovel part, the container, and then the battery's ability to deliver that power quickly represents that handle in the middle. So you may have a really strong alternator, lots and lots of power, right, to send out to your amplifier, and you may be able to dump it quickly, but that handle in the middle, if it's made out of rubber, it's not going to get much done. All right. The point is, an AGM can deliver, for example, hypothetical, can deliver, say, 200 amps constantly. Okay, this is a hypothetical scenario. It's actually less than that. It's closer to 100 amps constantly. And also, the biggest problem is the AGM can only take in so much power at one time. So if you're pulling amps out of that battery and you're trying to put power back in it, so you got that big ass alternator, a big 350, 400 amp alternator shoving power in, but the battery can only take so much at one time, you're going to drain the battery. Even though you've got a big alternator on it, charging it, you're still going to drain that battery because it can't take the power that the alternator is trying to deliver. That's the difference. In a lithium battery, the lithium chemistries are capable of taking in much more power at one time. So whenever you're pulling power out of it, which they can also do that in larger amounts as well, but they can also take in that power to replace it, so the power gets moving through the system a lot more efficiently. An AGM may have a lot in storage, and it may even be able to deliver quite a bit at one time, but if it can't take it in fast enough, it's just going to drain. And that's the biggest problem with AGM versus lithium. If you want to run AGM batteries and get the same throughput, say for example, even with my 20 amp hour trunked under lithium 5 kV1, okay, with that battery, it's only 20 amp hours of storage, but it can take in 400 amps constantly from the alternator. And it's capable of putting out about 1,000 amps at one time for lengths of time, which means it can move a lot of power. To replace that battery with an AGM battery, I would need about 5 AGM batteries to give enough throughput to allow enough charging to go back into that system and allow enough power to come out to replace it. I will need a whole lot of them. The AGMs would be able to do it longer without the alternator, but you're also adding hundreds and hundreds of pounds of weight to the vehicle, as well as a lot of space you're taking out, and cost too, you know. So if you're looking at an AGMs, and normally a new one's running $250 to $350 a piece, so 5 of those you're looking at $1,600, $1,700, $1,800, whereas you could put that same battery that I'm running for around $600 and do the same job and take up a whole lot less space and be just a pound or two. I can take 2 fingers and pick that battery up easily and carry it around. And it can do all the same in the audio world. It can do the same amount of work as 5 or 6 big full-size Group 31 AGMs. So if you're wanting to move power and to make a stereo system work, you're going to need to step up your game to either a whole lot of AGM batteries or head over to Trunk Thunder Lithium and these guys right here and pick up one of the 5K or 10K V2s, save yourself a ton of money and get a ton of weight and a ton of space, get something that's actually going to do the job. And if you want to add more of them, you can do that, and still you're going to be just a few pounds a piece for versus 80 or 70 pounds a piece. It's a huge difference. I mean, it's not even comparable. So you're going to do it for less money, you're going to do it more efficiently, less weight, and less space. It's a win, 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 win. Now, where the lithium tends to fall on its face is it doesn't like extremely cold weather. So when you get into, temperatures down below freezing and down below zero, down into those temperatures, you can run into the danger zone with lithium. Okay. Some chemistries, like the one my Tahoe can handle 32 degrees below zero. So there are chemistries out there that can do that. You just got to be aware that not all of them meet the criteria, especially when you're looking at headway cells. Headway specifically is not good at handling anything below freezing temperatures. And it also doesn't like to be charged heavily, especially when it's cold. So lots of cold and lots of charging can equal fire. So something to keep in mind. It's a trade-off, and trade-off. Now with Trunk Thunder Lithium, they're all advertised. These current ones are advertised down to, I believe it's 0 degrees. 0 degrees Fahrenheit is they're totally safe to charge. Anything below freezing, you want to limit how much you charge them, but still, these guys are running crazy builds. We're not out there in below freezing weather dropping the hammer on a regular basis. So something to keep in mind. It's always if the whatever the battery is that Trunk Thunder Lithium is putting out there is going to be advertised with the proper amount of fluctuation in temperature that it can handle, and the amount of charging that it can take at one time for continuous, and the amount that it can take in burst. All those things are to be considered whenever you're setting up your build and you're making your purchase. So there's just so many elements involved here, and a lot of that. But even AGM batteries don't handle extreme cold very well. They just don't get volatile. They just sort of don't work. Okay. Let's go back up here and see where we are. Jay says, cheers. Fuego. Fuego says, my excess power D3400 under the hood is amazing for what it is. Absolutely. I'm not dumping on excess power, guys. I'm not. My only problem with excess power and some of the other brands in that market is you're paying for a name. You're paying more for the name than you're actually getting for that amount more you're paying. Compare that same exact battery to an interstate battery. The same specs, Group 34, same thing, and the price, and to compare the prices, and you're going to see that the excess power is going to be significantly more expensive. Is it giving you significantly more battery? That's the question. So that's all I'm saying. They're absolutely great equipment, though. Alabama DS says, charge it when you're home at night with a battery charger. Get her done. El Fuegos is also running a JY2KF hybrid capacitor in the back. Capacitor is an excellent choice. If you're running an AGM battery or AGM battery bank, remember I said AGM has a problem taking in lots of power at once and letting out lots of power at once. Where a capacitor can do is actually fix a lot of those problems. So because a capacitor is even better than a lithium battery, in that it can take in redonkulous amounts of power instantly and put it out instantly. So running that alongside of an AGM setup can give you something similar to, if not better than in some ways, a lithium battery. But again, you're looking at space. You got your AGM batteries, you got your capacitors, you got all this stuff, whereas all of that can be replaced with a single one or two good lithiums from trunked under lithium. So what are you trying to do, you know? Capacitors can also be a little tricky. They can also cause drainage. They do leak. They do drain down over time. If they're hooked up into your system and they're not cut off with a switch of some sort, then they will sit there and try to maintain their charge and will slowly pull on your batteries. So if you're going to run a super cap or an ultra cap in a system with AGM batteries, you're going to want to put an isolator on that cap so that when your key's off, the cap gets separated from the rest of the bank. That's just been my experience. Yeah, El Fuego said, I want that trunked under 5K from my audio room test bench. Yeah, baby. That trunked under 5K is phenomenal. I mean, I'm telling you guys, I've got one in my Tahoe right now. It's just a little bitty tiny thing. You know, it's the size of a little toy football or something. It's just a little bitty thing. You can pick it up with 2 fingers, and it is carrying by itself a 8,000 watt amplifier. Lights don't dim, nothing happens. The voltage stays rock solid. That thing is phenomenal. It's just unreal how much power and work you can get out of a tiny little battery like that. So yeah, I'm 100% down with that. Team Chevy's in the house. Maryland's showing love. What's up, Team Chevy? Bobby B said, I'm listening. I'm under the hood of my truck. Well, don't bump your head, Bobby. Don't bump your head. If I could honk your horn, I definitely would. Just imagine me honking your horn right now. Alabama DS said, I was at a base war event today. Well, how did that go? How did that go today? Did you have was it a good one? Where was it at, too? I guess it was in Alabama. We have the ones coming up in, I believe, the 19th of next month. I think it's the 19th of next month we start having shows in Springfield. The GP is going to start having shows in Springfield, Missouri. So I believe, I asked about this. I know it's next month. I think it's the 19th. But there's also a show coming up before that that's not a GP show. I got to look back into that response I got back and find out where it was. But yeah, I can't wait, dude. I'm all about it. What is that? Yeah, right in the head. Right in the head. His head is hurting. He's got a big old knot on his head right now. Moving on to the next subject matter. We have, I had another question about mids and highs. So we're going to talk about that a little bit. And you've got your big, huge bonking system, right? You got the big batteries, you got the big subwoofers, you got the thunder in the back. Now you need to be able to provide power to your mids and highs. What are you going to do in that department? Are you going to, how much power do you need to get the mids and highs up to balancing with the subwoofers? And there's several nuances that come in with this. One of the first things is, do you want them to balance? Are you trying to build an SQL setup or an SQ setup? If you are, I usually would go, if you're trying to build an SQ setup, straight sound quality, I usually recommend going with about half as much power on your mids and highs as you do on your subwoofer, roughly. If you're trying to build an SQL setup, where you're just wanting it to be thunderous loud, but also still sound really good, then I recommend going with about 25% the power. So if you're doing say you're doing a 10,000 watt subwoofer amplifier, I recommend 2,500 watts on mids and highs. To get the output that you're looking at, and that's going to give you a pretty good SQL setup. Now, if you're running pure SPL, you know, it's any man's guess in that department. But the other end of that spectrum is, as you can see, we got Pro Audio speakers up there. What's that all about? Well, depending on how much power you're willing to put into that system, to those mids and highs, pro audio speakers are more efficient at using the power you're giving them, so you can get a lot more out of them. The car audio, quote, car audio speakers may not be that efficient. You know, you may give them 100 watts and get this much output, whereas you give the pro audio speakers 100 watts and get this much output. So it depends on that as well. Pro audio can also be, if you're wanting to be loud, if you're wanting to project across the parking lot, if you're wanting to really sound like a club, concert, you know, things like that, you're wanting to get it stupid loud and just produce a big, huge amount of sound, pro audio is where it's at. I mean, honestly, that's just where it's at. You're going to get so much more projection and so much more clarity at high volumes. They're really good at sounding very good at very high volumes, whereas car audio speakers tend to not be very good at sounding really good at high volumes. They sound really good at low to mid volumes. At high volumes, they tend to kind of start breaking up, whereas pro audio stuff sounds it sounds reasonably good, but it sounds that same reasonably good at full tilt boogie. So they have their place. You understand what you're wanting and how much power you're putting into it and what you're trying to get to in the end. All of those things are relevant. When it comes to marine speakers, I've also listed those. The reason is, guys, you're sleeping on marine speakers. Look, a marine speaker is capable of handling, depending on what rating it is capable of handling the weather better. Now, I've been to lots of events. You got humidity, you got heat, hot outside, you got humidity, you got the rain, you got all the different elements that you might deal with during the day. You may have your vehicle opened up and it starts to rain, and when it comes in, you know, what can take that weather? Marine stuff is going to be rated to do that. Also, if you're out over on the coast, on the California or east or west coast, where you're out by the ocean or close to the ocean, there's lots of salt in the air, and that salt actually causes aluminum to corrode really badly and causes metal to rust. So if you have speakers that are not designed for that environment, they can be damaged over time and cause problems. You get your voice coil in there, starts corroding, corrosion builds up in the voice coil, it's rubbing on stuff, it's just bad. You know, the connections go bad, the other things just go bad. So the corrosion can cause adhesion to break loose on stuff. Marine grade stuff is really good to fight against all that. So don't sleep on marine grade stuff. And they sound great. I've got a set of the F1s, the Gale Force F1s in my Tahoe right now. Sound crazy good, guys. They sound really good. And Hayanka's got a set that I just tested the other day. I got a video up on the channel where I tested the Hayankas. They sounded really good too. So, yeah. Let's see what else we got going on in here. Bobby B. Alabama says, use the seats, Bobby. El Fuego said, Bobby B's build completion pics coming in 2028. Damn Skippy, man. Yeah, Bobby does really cool work. He's slow. He's very slow, like really slow, but he's very meticulous, and his work looks really, really good. So, you know, there is that. How much do I think my sub box weighs? The box itself? Man, I don't even know, dude. I went through a lot of trouble to build my enclosure in such a way that it wasn't extremely dense. Okay, in engineering, there's two ways to create strength. One is just to layer stuff. Like if you build a bridge out of bricks and you start at the bottom and you just stack bricks until you got to the top, the bridge would be solid. Nothing could go underneath it, but it would be solid, right? On the other hand, you could use ribs and structures and braces and things in the right places and build it super duper duper light and still get most of that strength if you engineer it properly. And that's kind of the idea that I did with my enclosure. I put bracing where it needed to be to keep from having to put crazy amounts of layers. I don't even want to guess, man. I can't even guess at the weight on my box, but it's not nearly as heavy as something else. The average enclosure that size, it's not anywhere near as heavy. So I don't know, man. I can pick it up by myself, though. I can shove it in by myself. So that tells you something, I guess. More channels versus more power on SQL. Not really. That's not a multiple choice question. It's like both of those are yes. Channels are good, but you don't have to break it up into many channels. I mean, it depending on what you're trying to do. You know, if you're building this up where you want to have a good stereo image, that's it. All you need is 2 channels. You just need enough power to get everything moving, to get it loud. And power also keeps it clean. So if you try to push a 300 watt amp into 300 watts out of it, you're going to find that up somewhere close to that 300 watt peak where that amp's just running out of juice, it's going to start falling on its face. All right, and I'll explain why. Okay, so it's just like a suspension system on a vehicle, right? If you're using all of that suspension system to carry weight, you have nothing left to hit the bumps with, right? If your truck is sitting all the way down on the bump stops, and you hit a bump, there's nothing to do, nothing to happen there. Same thing when your amplifier is pushing as hard as it can to give you what it's giving you, and something comes along to want to do something bigger, like you're jamming a high bass note and there's a drum kick in there. The drum kick is going to try to play, but there's nothing left. The amplifier is giving it all it's got, so it's going to come in weak and distorted and not really have any impact. Those impacts that you want, those, you know, that impactful variance in music, that dynamic power, to get that, you've got to be overpowering the equipment and then backing it down so that the amplifier has some left. Even when it's at full tilt, it's got some left to give you for those impact hits. Or else the music's going to sound flat, dead, and somewhat distorted and muddy. You guys know the sound. You crank it all the way up, it just sounds like hot garbage. Okay? And that's why your amplifier is running at full, everything it's got, just trying to give you the basic stuff. Then when those dynamic hits come along, it has nothing left to give. So it's better to run more power, have more power in reserve than what you actually use. You don't want to push in your amplifier to its maximum. You want to be, you should have, barring the fact that you want to make sure you're not clipping your gains. You should have that gain should be back down quite a bit. If the gain on your mids and highs should be like less than half. It should be way less than half gain. If you've got that gain turned up and it's up well over halfway, you need a bigger amplifier. Plain and simple. You're not going to be anything over that. You're going to be running into mud. You need a bigger amplifier. If you got your gains turned and it's doing what you want it to do, and your gains are like a quarter, a third, something like that, then you're probably about right on your amplifier. But if you're having to crank the gain up real high on your mids and highs to get everything to balance out, you need bigger mids and highs amps, or you need more efficient speakers, or both. So, what is this low volume you speak of? Yeah, it's for the people that like to stick their pinky out, have the Grey Poupon, and sip the special tea. You know, the special tea with the whiskey in it. This is not whiskey tea. This is Diet Coke and ice. So, I don't drink anymore. El Fuego said I had the Kicker KM8 coaxial speakers. They're awesome and have a light show. Yes. You saw the Hyankas, right? Did I put up the video? I was looking at the Kicker, the new Kicker Marines, and they look a lot like that Hyanka set. I mean, I was like, look at them going, Is it the same speaker? Because it looks really, really similar. I haven't priced them, but yeah. I like a little light show, man. Light shows are good. Death Ranger said low volume. Nope. I concur, man. Low volume means that you are not in my vehicle. Moving on along. Sealed versus ported. Oh, man. This is one of my favorite subjects, guys. So, a lot of emphasis has been placed in today's base world on ported enclosures. Bandpass, bandpass enclosures, 4th order, 6th order, just ported enclosures, ported flat walls, all that stuff. But it's all ports, right? Because you can get more efficiency on certain frequency ranges with a port. There's a lot of stuff you give up, though. And if you want to hear the difference, if you get into it now, we're back onto that Grey Poupon, pinky in the air, sipping the tea with stuff in it. Okay. If you want to get a really, really good, well-rounded subwoofer sound, you're never ever going to get it 100% on a ported enclosure. A sealed enclosure is always, and I mean always, going to sound better than a ported enclosure. And that's going to rub some people the wrong way. But it's the truth. The sealed response range is going to be a flatter response. It's going to be tighter. It's going to have better cone control because of the restriction behind it. You got group delay with the port and the subwoofer are never in line with each other. So you have the subwoofer play and then the port will play behind it and then the subwoofer will stop and then the port will stop. So it's like wiggle, 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 stop. And then this other one keeps going. That's the group delay. Ports always do that. Passive radiators also do that. Same problem as a port. Sealed enclosure doesn't do that. And that by itself makes a huge difference. If you hear something with a good sealed enclosure playing some recognizable tracks, you're going to be blown away by how good it sounds. You're never going to get to sound that good with a port. But to get a sealed box to be as loud as a ported box, you almost have to run twice as much power and twice as much subwoofers. So there's that. It depends on what you're trying to accomplish. Jay Snipes. My last ride's wall was all doubled up MDF with huge excess power AM/FM bank. I had it weighed at the landfill over 12,000 pounds. Yeah. That's my point. So to get a vehicle to play in the 60s, okay, usually you're going to be looking at something that the enclosure and the install is going to double the vehicle's weight. It's like crazy amounts of more weight. Like you make a vehicle basically undrivable or undailyable by getting it that loud. And I wanted to get close to that in volume, but I wanted to be able to still daily the vehicle and have it get reasonable fuel economy, as reasonable as a Tahoe is going to get. Be able to accelerate on the interstate, be able to stop with normal distances and things like that. Not ride like a bread wagon or something. So I had to really think that through and get what I wanted out of it for the least amount of weight possible, and also pushing that weight up front helped to balance it front to back so there's not a big weight bias and a big heavy back end flopping around back there. Things are nice and stable. It drives good. It rides good. And it gets reasonable-ish fuel economy. And it plays hammer hard bass. But in order to get to that next level, you do have to put a lot of weight in the vehicle. And that's a perfect example of what I was trying to avoid. But, I get it. That's just where you have to go. See, what was it said? Use AGM. Okay, AGM bank. I get it. Not a AFM bank, AGM bank. I got you. A huge AGM bank. Right. Exactly. How many systems had many systems of seal back in the day? Yeah. One of my favorite systems from back in the day was two sealed JL Audio 15W3s back in the 90s. In the early 90s, I had it in a sealed enclosure in an S10 pickup on a 1,000-watt Memphis 1000.1. It was the Memphis, the chrome-plated one that was all chrome. Really, really good amplifiers, guys. Had 1,000 watts on two JLW3s and 15s and a sealed enclosure in an S10. And it slammed pretty damn good. The best part is, though, it sounded amazing. I'm still running. I'm running a port myself because I'm trying to be efficient, you know. I'm trying to get to a different loud level. And to get past a certain point, you've either got to put tons of power and tons of speakers, or you got to use ports to boost areas. And then you got to work around the differences and the problems that you have with ports. It's give and take. You know, which poison do you want to take? That's what it boils down to. There's no one way that's the best. There's just different things that give you different goods and bads and mixtures. So you figure out which things you want to, you know, work with and which things you're willing to accept to get that, and then you pick that particular flavor and you go with it. But never discount a good sealed flat wall. And I almost went with a sealed flat wall. In fact, my next build, I may end up doing a sealed flat wall, just because I want to. Nobody does that. Nobody does that, and I like being different. I like being the underdog and taking it somewhere that nobody else takes it. El Fuego said the human body comes ported, so I say ported, especially if it's a female box. That's El Fuego. Yeah, buddy, man. Seal sounds better. Yeah, and the reason, he says, Franco Quaid says seal sounds better with rock and roll music. Absolutely. And the reason it does is because it's better at dynamics. When you're dealing, okay, I explained this before, but I'm going to do it again because I want to emphasize this. When you're running a port on an enclosure, you got your subwoofer and you got your port, okay? The subwoofer, the back wave, the pressure from the subwoofer, the air movement from the subwoofer gets inside the port and turns the port into a speaker. All right, but the problem is, this guy over here, the subwoofer, has to start moving before this guy does. This guy is literally always behind the subwoofer. So your sub starts moving, then your port catches up, and then they actually move like this at first. And as you get closer and closer to the port tuning, then they get to moving together. And that's why you get that peak. And as soon as you get past that port tuning, they start going opposite each other again and it falls off. That's why a ported enclosure has got a real high peak and then drop. It's because going up to that peak, they're actually moving like this. When it gets to that peak where you're actually paying the right frequency, they're moving together. And then as it moves up to the higher frequency range, they're back doing this again. So it becomes a leaky box on both sides of that peak. All right, and a leaky box means it's just not playing nothing. That's one problem, that peak, right? Where they're not playing together, then they are, then they're not again. All right, that's one problem. The second problem is, even when they are playing together, so if we assume that we're going to just play a note, that note is going to be the note that your port is tuned to, perfect note. What happens is you go, bump, and then see, this will start, the subwoofer starts. Then a second later, after it goes up and comes down, then this guy starts, and then they get synced up, right? And then the subwoofer stops, and this guy goes again, and then stops. There's always a delay, and that group delay is what causes kick drums, quick bass note changes and stuff to sound like shit. Okay, it sounds like shit. When you put it in a sealed enclosure, you're now only controlling one, and that will start and stop those notes in a timely manner and keep that nice and clean. Those dynamic hits and dynamic movements and sound will be consistent and the way they're supposed to be from the recording. Whenever you're adding that slop of that port, having to catch up and then having to stop, you're adding the softness to both ends of it, and that's why the drums and the stuff sound like garbage. So that's why a sealed enclosure is always going to sound better than a ported enclosure if you're trying to push for sound quality. Jay Shipes. I love the JLW3s. Oh man, great subwoofers. I rocked 4 under the seat of an extended cab until the foams in the surround dry rotted. What happened to mine? Get this, guys, where I got my 2 JLW3s, my 15W3s. Guy drove a car off a bridge and into the water. And the car was underwater for like, I don't know, 3 or 4 days. They finally pulled the car out, and I knew the guy that went down there and did the work of getting it out of the water. And when he pulled it out and all this water run out of there and everything was completely drenched. I saw the subwoofers in the trunk back there. I was like, hey, ask this guy if he wants to get rid of these subwoofers. And so he did, and he asked him for me, and the guy says, yeah, man, you can have whatever you want out of there. He was just going to insurance the car because everything was run. So the subwoofers were completely soaked. They'd been underwater for several days in a creek bed in a car. I took them out, dried them out. They were fine. I put them in. I built an enclosure for them, a sealed enclosure for them, put them in there and run them for years. The way they finally died was one of the tensile leads broke loose on one. I resoldered it. And then another broke loose on another one, and I resoldered it. And then it broke loose. The tensile lead finally broke loose up where it goes into the cone. And I said, screw it. I just got new subwoofers. I could have reconed them, but I just got new subs. I had had them for years. They had been underwater. They, like everything was against these things. They should not have worked. They should have been hot garbage when I got them. And they just kept working. They're just really great subs. Bobby B says, sounds like shit. Yeah. You're never gonna get that sound to sound as good with a big old port as you are with a sealed enclosure. But in my case, what I'm shooting for is something that doesn't necessarily need to be that tight. I just want it to be loud. I want to float hair. I want to do hair tricks. I want things to make wind. And that stuff all requires either tons and tons and tons of power or well-designed box, well-designed ports, and everything laid out right to get to this level. So you can't have everything. You're gonna have to sacrifice to get all of it, and can't sacrifice. I'm running on a budget, so I built it to do what it's doing. That's it. I know you guys get that. Jason Ewing said, "Howdy, everybody. Howdy, Jason. How are you today?" Let's check in with the list. The next thing we want to talk about today is where to fuse power runs. And I was watching a few videos on some of the people that I watch, and I saw some things, and I said, you know what? I need to address some of these things. 'Cause I've seen some things that were pretty good, but not where they should be, right? So when it comes to fusing, you have to stop the power from getting out of the source, wherever the source is, and getting to a short, okay? So your fuse needs to be as close to the source of power as you can get it. If it's a battery, then the fuse needs to be very close to that battery, because everything between the fuse and the battery is not protected. Okay, that was my Donald Trump move, not protected. He's got it, man. It's not protected. So the other places that people don't think about is the alternator. The alternator is a source of power. Now, granted, when you turn the engine off, it's not producing power anymore, but it is producing power other times. And the odds are, whenever the short happens, the vehicle is going to be running, because you're going to be moving No, I'm not muted. So, sound? Yes? No? I'm not muted. All right, hang on. My audio is back. Y'all can hear me? Okay. I have no idea. I noticed that the thing went crazy and did something weird, and that's all I know. So, I think one of them Pyramid RCAs fell out. Pyramid RCA. I don't have RCAs. Look here. Hold up. Oh, wow, man. I don't know. I don't know. Oh, yeah. Well, the main thing is fuse by the power source, whatever that power source is. Battery, fuse, alternator, fuse. If you're running from your battery to your alternator, then fuse by the battery, fuse by the alternator. You don't have to fuse at the amplifier because it doesn't make power. It's not putting power onto the wires. You're protecting the wires, you see. So, yeah, that's the thing. And a lot of folks are missing that. And is it going to be an issue? Probably not. I mean, odds are 99% chance that you'll never need that fuse that you're putting in the system. It's that 1%, guys. I don't want to be... Yeah, exactly. Bobby said I fuse at both ends. Absolutely. Anything that makes power and puts it on that wire, there should be a fuse as close as you can to that power source. That's the key. Because, like I said, it's going to protect whatever's going to happen at the amplifier. Those fuses are going to do that too. Odds are, if the amplifier has a problem, it's going to blow, and that is going to cut the power there. But if it creates a dead short somewhere in the amplifier, then you're going to blow the fuses by the power source. You're protecting the wire, not the amplifier. Honestly, the fuses on an amplifier are mainly there to keep people from pushing crazy amounts of power into the amplifier or pulling it out. A lot of times back in the days, people were, dropping the ohm load really low and pulling crazy amounts of power into that amplifier. By putting a fuse there, you could restrict that. You could limit that. And they, like a lot of the systems today, the amplifiers, they don't have fuses at all. They don't need them. The amplifier just won't work. It'll turn itself off. Whenever you try to play at half an ohm, it just turns off, right? It cuts itself off. That's replaced the fuse that used to be there. On the amplifiers back in the day that had the fuses on them, if you took those fuses out and put bigger fuses in, you could lower that ohm load and you could pull more power out of that amp. But you're probably going to burn the amp up pretty quickly. And the fuses were there to keep you from doing stupid. They weren't there to protect the amp from normal operation. They were there to protect the amp from somebody running a half ohm load on a 4 ohm amplifier. So fusing the amplifier is pointless. It's totally pointless. Anyway, fuse the power sources. Does anybody have any? We are at the bottom. You see, we're at the bottom right now. We're down here. So now we're down to questions. Dre Brown said, DefBots 9.5K Atom or Tar Amp Smart 8? The 9.5K. I can't speak on the Tar Amps Smart 8. I haven't used one. I have used the DefBots 9.5K Atom. I've got one sitting right over there on the shelf, ready to go. And I absolutely love the amplifier. It makes a ton of power. So I can say that I would recommend it, because I'm not familiar with the Smart 8 enough to be able to really say. But I will say this also. If you're getting a real good deal on the Smart 8, then you're probably okay with that. Because Tar Amps has been doing good stuff. I've got a lot of buddies that run them, and they've had really good luck with them. You know, totally Donald Trump that stuff. Perfect. It's perfect. We have all the amplifiers. Have them all. And if, for that matter, head over to Slapz and pick up the Slapz 8K. These guys right here, Slapz Audio. Yeah, y'all can see finger doing weird things. Right up there, those guys. Pick up the the 8K. That is the same amplifier essentially as Sundown Full Bridge 8K, and it'll do the same thing you're wanting to get done at a lot better price. I would run that if given the choices, honestly. Price, you know, for value. Let's see here. I quit that 3 personal builds ago. I don't fuse between my amps and battery. You can. All right. Here's my take on fusing between amps and battery. If your run from your battery to your amps is and going anywhere where it could possibly short out against something for any length of distance, I fuse there. But if you're running, like, if you've got your batteries as close to your amplifier as you possibly can, and you're running short runs and there's nothing around that they can really get in, you know, then yeah, go for it. Because it makes no point to put a fuse in there if you're running a 1 foot run or a 2 foot run, and it's running across like a carpeted piece of wood, you know, whatever, rubber bedline coated plastic or whatever. There's nothing there for it to, and you've got it secure, everything is locked down. There's no point in it. But if I'm running it for any distance, I still would fuse on there. It depends on where it's running and all that stuff. There's lots of variables involved. Hitman 74, I have a Tar Amp Smart 3K stock alternator. What's a good budget? Plug and play. 2 CD lithium battery. So we got a 3,000 watt plug and play. Well, I mean, I would go with the trunked under lithium 5K V2. That's just going to solve all the problems, and that's going to give you enough support to. You're running on I'm assuming you're running a stock alternator, so that would support 5,000 to 6,000 watts easy on a stock alternator. And if you upgrade the alternator, that 5K V2 will support 10,000 watts easy with an upgraded alternator. So it's a good. You don't want to go with just enough, because, you know, as a bass head, we are always going to go bigger. We're always going to go up. We're always going to do more. So just plan for that. You know, that 5K V2 is a perfect battery to sort that out, to handle what you've got now, plus twice that, plus 4 times that, you know, depending on your system. It can grow with you. You're not replacing something. It's going to be able to carry on. You know, you're going to add to it or carry on. That's what you want. You don't want to have to replace a thing. So that's my take on that. And I honestly, that's the truth. Is MDF working? Is MDF worth using? Still not sure what wood to use for my wall. MDF is fine. MDF is great. It doesn't have any resonance to it. It tends to be pretty dead. It's pretty stiff. It's also less expensive. The problem with MDF is it's heavy. If you don't mind the weight, you're always going to give up something. Like I said, you can't have everything. If you don't mind the weight, MDF is totally fine. It's easy to work with. You know, it's easy to, you know, you don't, when you cut with it, you don't want to put a mask on because you don't want to breathe that stuff. But it's easy to work with, and you don't want to get it wet. It does the job. It's nice and dead. You know, it doesn't paint or it doesn't stain. You know, you can't do any of that with it. You have to do some tricky stuff. But But the problem with MDF, the big problem with MDF is it's heavy. You know, compared to a plywood of any kind, even a pine cabinet grade plywood or pine, decking style plywood like you would roof a house with, it was going to work really good. It's going to be a lot lighter, and it's going to be pretty inexpensive. So it's the reasons for choosing MDF is because it's inexpensive and it's very dead. And that's really the only two reasons. Everything else, some type of plywood is going to ultimately be better in most regards. So it's fine. Just dealing with those things. Jay Shipe said, I love my new Tar Amps Big Boss 8Ks. They have the same footprints as my old Boss Base 15Ks. I like smart technology. Yeah, what that means basically is they can handle different ohm loads and produce similar amounts of power. Plus that comes into play whenever you have box rise. So when in box rise, when you have impedance rise, when your speaker is moving, all right, when it's sitting still, it may have, say, a 4 ohm resistance, right? When it starts moving, it's now a generator. So as you move that coil past that magnet and back and forth, you're generating alternating current and sending it back down the speaker wire toward the amplifier. That generating of power causes, it impedes the power that's trying to get to the speaker. That's where impedance comes from. So resistance is how much resistance there is in DC current to go through the coil when it's sitting still. Impedance is when the amplifier is moving the speaker and the speaker gets to moving in and out of the coil, in and out of the gap. It starts producing its own electric current, sending it back down the wire. That impedes the other power from getting there. That causes the rise that everyone talks about, the box rise or impedance rise. Well, when that happens, your amplifier sees more of an ohm load, and a smart amplifier will actually still produce, it'll kick up the power to keep producing the same amount of wattage even with a higher ohm load. So it can tend to make things a little bit more consistent. But yeah, that's how all that works. You guys haven't ever understood that. Hopefully that little Donald Trump hand gesture explanation was enough to sink the basics home into your brains. Jen said, what's up, bass brothers? Don't forget the bass sisters. Joe Player said, isn't roll-on bed liner good for MDF just for safety, like protection from water and coating it? Yes. The problem is a roll-on bed liner is pretty expensive. And if you had bought plywood, you probably would spend less than buying MDF and roll-on bed liner. That said, MDF is solid stuff, and roll-on bed liner will give you protection to a degree. There's a limit to how much protection you're going to get out of that. It's not going to be like submarine level of protection. It's not going to be like sitting it in the back of your truck and letting it rain on it level of protection. It's going to be more of a humidity stopper, an accidental get wet kind of a scenario thing. And the problem is, if there's any gaps and the water gets in there underneath that bed liner into that MDF, it's just going to soak right on in and suck it up like a sponge. So there's that. It's just a dangerous game you're playing with the water and the MDF. But if you keep it dry, it's fine, man. But guys, we are going to call it. We have been going for a while, and I appreciate y'all for stopping in. Y'all have been amazing as always. I thoroughly enjoy these little get-togethers that we have, and I hope y'all do too. I put a lot of work into my new studio, getting everything going the way I want it to go, and I'm doing my best to give you guys the best experience I can. Sorry about the audio dropout. I did not do it. It just failed. And you guys be sure and hit that subscribe button, slam that bell, slam the like, share the videos, because I put out stuff on a regular basis, and I do this every Sunday at 7 p.m. Central Time. Guys, peace.
C-A-E is in the house. Cruising down the road, bumping bass, feel the thrill. Subwoofers banging hard, yeah, we're making a scene. Windows down, hair flying, got the vibe, what a chill. Lights flashing bright, we're in a bass machine. With pretty ladies hanging tight inside this rolling show. Every car statement, yeah, we own this night. Let it blow. Get loud, turn it up to shake the ground. Get loud, feel the music all around. Get loud, yeah. Get loud, drop the bass on the crowd. Get low, get down, let it hit the ground. Turn it up, smell the smoke in the air. Crank it up all the way, like you just don't care. Float that hair. Feel the beat, feel the drive. Let that guitar feel alive. Bass pounding down the line. Move your body, brace the time. Let it shake, let it roll. Kick drums echo in your soul. Deep vibrations, take control. Feel the music, make it whole.